Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by us. What? We sponsor ourselves? Is that even legal? Check us out on Amazon. You can have access to the titles of Pedagogue, the youth ministry book by Lonnie Jones, Cognitive Spiritual Development, a Christ-centered approach to spiritual self-esteem, Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space, a small essay using the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to talk about psychological and emotional self-defense, If I Were a Mouse, a children's book written and illustrated by Lonnie Jones, and then The Selfish Reel, a very short story about a decision. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel to see archived lessons and presentations from across the country, some videos with rope tricks and knots. Don't forget to visit the Facebook page 550 Guys to learn about the little rope men that we make and that we invented and that we make. And then be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. This is Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Faulkner University announces a 60% tuition discount for members of the Church of Christ. Now, there are some guidelines. This 60% tuition reduction is applicable to adult undergraduate Bible degrees or graduate Bible degrees from the Curley Graduate School of Theology and the VP Black College of Biblical Studies. You must satisfy all admission requirements and maintain satisfactory academic progress. You must remain continuously enrolled, including summers, until the completion of the degree. You must provide a letter from an elder or minister, preferably on church letterhead, verifying that you're an active member of a Church of Christ congregation prior to your initial enrollment. This offer applies to adult undergraduate degrees such as biblical studies, youth and family ministry tracks, and it also includes graduate degrees. And those are the Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, the Master of Arts in Family Life Ministry, or a Master of Theology, and it also applies to the PhD in Biblical Studies. For undergraduate inquiries, please contact Adult Enrollment 334-386-7140, 334-386-7140, or Adult Enrollment at Faulkner edu. That is Adult Enrollment at Faulkner.edu. For graduate inquiries, please call 334-386-7539, 334-386-7539. Graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. That is graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I was in Arkansas, it was years ago. It wasn't hunting season, but for some reason I brought my bow. And I'm just going to walk around and shoot and target practice when I had nothing else to do. I wandered out behind Granny Wallace's old house, and they just rolled up the spring hay. And so I'm walking around in this field with a bow. My arrows are outfitted with field tips, and I'm looking at these dozens of massive round hay bales. And then as I walked through this field, I began to guesstimate at yardages. Now, don't ever shoot a hay bale with a broadhead. You'll never get it out. Once that arrow goes into that hay, it's done. Forget it. It's not going to come out. So I had these field tips on my bow, and I'm walking around and I'm guesstimating yardages. I'm trying to say, hey, if I can shoot this at this yardage, if I can guess this yardage, because when you shoot a bow, you have these sight pins, and the top pin is for short distance, and each pin lower get you out to about 30 or 40 yards. So I'm walking around in this field shooting this bow with these hay bales, and then I start stalking in this field. I start kind of low walking and looking at the next hay bale I'm going to shoot, and all of a sudden I'm transported, and I'm in the movie Dances with Wolves, and I'm killing bison. So I'm out here pretending to shoot bison in this hayfield. And my 8-year-old, I guess he was probably 8 years old at the time, my nephew Eli, he came walking out from behind the house, and he's got this little plastic gun in his hand. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Uncle Lonzo, what are you doing?" And I said, well, what are you doing? He said, "Well, I'm shooting all these buffalo." You- so so here I am. I've got the mindset of an 8-year-old boy. And then you really do have to understand the male mindset. We largely live in a fantasy driven world. We have a view of ourselves that no one else has. When you're a little boy and you're changing clothes, either putting on clothes in the morning or taking your clothes off in the afternoon, and you stand there in front of the mirror and you got on your tidy whitey shorts and socks that go up over your calves, we truly believe we look either like a professional wrestler or a superhero rather than a mostly naked kid. Uh, I blame Superman for some of this. Underpants go under the pants, by the way, Man of Steel, if you're listening to this. We wear a suit and we're James Bond. We do 2 push-ups and we think our wives can see a change in the definition of our arms. A 12-year-old, and that's my code word for a person who is ridiculously younger than I am, a 12-year-old grows a beard and thinks he looks like an operator. Everyone with a hat thinks they look like Indiana Jones. So imagine, if you will, what takes place present day in my mind as I stand under the moonlight on a crisp, cold morning. I'm completely covered in camouflage. I have camouflage boots and camouflage gloves. I've got a camouflage hat on, and I unsnap the case that holds my rifle. And I reach into this dark case and I remove a Ruger Mark II M77 stainless steel bolt action mounted on a synthetic stock. The stock is equipped with a Bradley cheek rest, and on top of the rifle is a Nikon Monarch II BDC bullet drop compensator 3x12 powered optic. The sniper is getting ready to move stealthily into the night and creep into his hide. And then I bump the key fob and the hatch on the minivan begins to close. Assassins, snipers, stealth operatives don't drive minivans. Wah, wah, wah. Now, my bubble burst. Okay, the Beltway snipers and Bruce Willis as the Jackal were in panel vans, just for clarity. They weren't minivans, they were panel vans. So here I stand in the moonlight with my hunting gear outside of a white Toyota minivan, and all the fantasies of being some kind of a big game hunter stealth operative just drifts away with the dust from the road. The first time I ever drove up that road, the road is now called Bird Road in Velvet Ridge, Arkansas. The first time I ever drove up it, I was in a 68 Impala named West Wind, and the road was not paved. My car, I love that old Impala, but it was a piece of junk, and it was very, very consistent with my socioeconomic class at the time. But it was the only car I had. It was the only car I could afford, and so it was the only car I drove. And I'd always had this idea what it would be like to drive back down that road, return to that little community and driving down that road in something a little bit more impressive. It has been fun to drive up that little road in both versions of the tactical Toyota. the used 2004, and then it's since been retired with about 430 something thousand miles on it. But it's been fun to drive up that little road in the 2018 Tacoma when it was indeed 2018. I remember when I first got the original tactical Toyota, modifying Brad Paisley's song. The song was entitled Get a Little Mud on the Tires. And the opening line is, well, I've got some good news. The bank finally came through, and I'm holding the keys to a brand new Chevrolet. I modified the words, and I got some big news. The bank finally came through. I'm holding the keys to a brand new TRD. Although it was a used Toyota Racing Development pre-runner. But now here I am. I'm in Velvet Ridge, Arkansas, a place where they still call me Lonzo. And I'm driving and hunting. And I'm not in a little jacked up Tacoma with 4 doors and a short bed and a toolbox and all this cool stuff. I'm in a minivan. Jackie's brother, Shane, who's been a friend of mine since Jackie and I dated, we've shared many adventures together. And with some degree, he's always treated me as if I was pretty cool and maybe even looked up to me. And he's treated me as if I was a subject matter expert on ropes and things vertical. We've ridden bikes, boats, climbed, explored, through trees, rappelled, and swam in the coldest water hole I've ever been in my life. We've done a lot of cool stuff together, and there's mutual respect between us. I got in his truck with him to go pick up a ladder while we were out there visiting, and he looks at me with a dip in his mouth, and he just turns and says, "So, a van, huh?" How does one explain to someone who thinks you're cool that you're driving a van? Now, you got to understand that I'm driving a van in Arkansas, but it's not because I have kids at home. And it's really not because we have minions in Georgia. When we keep the kids, we usually just swap vehicles, and LB drives Jackie's Lexus, and then we drive her multi-seater Crumb Cruncher carrier. But we no longer have the hybrid Lexus SUV. No, my wife, while I was out of town speaking at the CYC conference last year, traded her Lexus for a Toyota minivan. And she traded it for a minivan because my wife has Spanish water dogs. Now, those of you who are not familiar with a Spanish water dog, just picture a medium-sized Muppet with dreadlocks and combine with it the intelligence of a 4-year-old and a velociraptor. Oh, yeah. So we're traveling across country. We're going to these places, and we're driving the minivan so she can put the dog kennels in there, and the dogs can travel and vacation with us. And then as you travel with the little Muppet velociraptors in your car, you must stop at the large truck stop in Mississippi, and one must walk the dog. So adding insult to injury, not only do I crawl out of a minivan, but I put a leash on a little white fluffy Muppet that has a Christmas collar on it, and I get to walk it around the little dog park while all the truckers roll in and all the truckers roll out. I don't feel demasculinated at all whatsoever. But now the big question is about deer hunting in the minivan. What does one do if one kills a deer while driving a minivan? You got to understand, I've hauled lots of deer in the back of my little pickup truck. I've shown up at Wednesday Bible study, at Christmas dinner parties, and one funeral with dead deer in my truck, dripping blood out of the tailgate. But a minivan? What does one do when one kills a deer in a minivan? Well, the answer to that question, in addition to my sniper assassin fantasy personality, I have all the tape and garbage bags of a serial killer in the van. You see, if I shoot a deer in Arkansas, I'll simply field dress it, I'll skin it, I'll quarter it, I'll wrap it in plastic bags, pack it in ice, and transport it. As much as I like to complain about it, as much as I like to hassle Jackie about it, and as much as I'll be mortified if I get killed in a car wreck while I'm in a minivan, the van does not affect my skills with a knife. The van does not affect my ability to shoot a rifle. The van doesn't affect anything about me other than my imagination. See, what you drive isn't what you are, and it's not who you are. A tiny little wife in a jacked up dually pickup truck who has to back into spaces and stop traffic for months while you get it right are still just tiny little ladies with too much truck. Everyone who drives a Trans Am, a Ferrari, or a Ferrari Daytona Spider isn't Burt Reynolds, Magnum PI, or Sonny Crockett. The vehicle might make a statement. The vehicle might cause a first impression, but the vehicle you drive is not who you are. It's merely what you drive. An ancient writer used the phrase in one of his letters to a church, and it says that we should control our vessel with sanctification and honor, not in passion like the pagans or like the Gentiles. And when he says you should control your vessel, it's a chariot racing term. Basically, he's saying that you're the driver, and who you are and what you are is the inside of the vehicle, not the outside of the vehicle. And the outside of the vehicle, the lust and the passions, the chassis, doesn't define who you are. You're not controlled by those things. Those things don't control you. You control your response to them. Basically, stay in your lane, bro. Your body is your vehicle, but it does not define you nor control you, but rather the impetus is on us to control our responses to the things that affect the emotions, the intellect, the thoughts, and the moods of our vehicle. The vehicle doesn't make us who we are. Being fat, skinny, tall, short, bald, muscular, black, brown, white, or any of those identity markers that we like to put so much emphasis on, that's not who we are. None of those are our identity. They are temporary characteristics of a temporary vehicle that we operate for a very, very, very short while. Now, I do believe we have some vehicle maintenance requirements. I think there's a stewardship principle that says regardless of the vehicle that you're in, you've got to take reasonable care of it. But I'm still not talking about obsessive polishing, waxing, changing the wheels, and putting lift kits on it. Just drive what you brought to the track and drive it with honor, not letting it control you, but you controlling it. You see, the minivan did not affect my limited abilities as a marksman, a tracker, or a deer skinner. Driving the minivan does not affect my belt rank in jiu-jitsu. It does not affect my intellect. It doesn't affect my devotion to my family, my wife, or my God. The vehicle merely contains the driver. It does not define the driver. What defines you are your morals, your values, your commitments, the ability to control your desires. And by controlling our desires, I don't mean not having the desires, not having the emotions, but simply how we respond to the desires we have or the emotions that we experience. In the end, the vehicle says very little about us. It will wear out. It is temporary, and we will trade it in for something much, much better. The trade-in value has a lot to do with how you operate the vehicle. Or maybe I should say the trade-in value has a lot to do with why you operate the vehicle, your attitudes, your goals, your motives, your standards, your morals, your values. You are not what you drive, but you may be what drives you. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use two large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3 W's and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. They aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. Heritage Christian University produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education and offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and Master of Divinity. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University, formerly International Bible College, has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt after graduation. For more information about Heritage Christian University, visit www.hcu.edu. That's 3 W's and a dot. hcu.edu. Heritage Christian University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.